Hello Internet, Sir Mutton Chops here. Welcome back to Oggok. It's going to be the last bit of footage from this zone, at least for a while. And yeah, we're going to get some fat loots here from these fat guards who are derping out. The pathing here is a little defunct, but whatever. It's kind of like a weird do-si-do they're doing, or some ritualistic interpretive dance. But they can get jiggy with it. That's fine. They're bouncers in the club. And regardless, we're going to relieve them of their fine steel weapons and crude steens, or steins, that's how you pronounce it. I always used to pronounce it steens because it looks like steens, but the correct pronunciation is stein. So yeah, and I believe Enjoy, our necromancer here, can sell to the merchants because he's in skeletal form, and the merchants are pretty much oblivious to what's happening. Even though the killings are going on right in front of them, they're like, I don't care. Basically, like real merchants, they just, well, they're all about the money. And, well, he's selling to them in skeletal form, so I guess that alters his faction from dubious. I'm not too sure. He may have worked his faction up. I didn't ask, or if I did, I don't remember. But I myself actually could sell to the merchants as well. Not that I would want to, because all that money would weigh me down and absolutely ruin my armor class. But yeah, I just go behind the merchants. Anyone with sneak can do it. And right-click behind them. If sneak succeeds, then you can go ahead and make your transactions. Now, I'm sure most of you know that, but for those of you who don't, there it is. I'm just relaying information. You can now think that I'm highly knowledgeable, which I'm not, actually. I'm going to talk about that here real quick. I was having a conversation with someone in-game a week or so ago, and we were planning on heading down into the depths, into the bowels of Lower Guck to obtain a few items, as there are quite a few pretty nice items out there. And one of the drops he was hoping to get was the Executioner's Hood, so we planned on going on some godforsaken hour early in the morning to avoid other campers and all that competition nonsense. And anyway, the conversation was going rather smoothly. We're talking about items and whatnot, and I decided to, throw in some input about stats and whatnot, and eventually came to the idea that I should ask the genius question. That being, what pray tell drops the Executioner's Hood? Because apparently I couldn't remember. And long, awkward pause inserted. ... The answer was the Executioner. Yeah, that's just sad. Womp womp. But it's worse. There's a pattern of this behavior. A few days earlier to that conversation, I was having a conversation with a girl, ho ho ho, and she was taking botany and whatnot, and the conversation turned to flowers, of all things. And seeing as it's not every day you talk to people about flowers, I thought, okay, yeah, sure, I'm interested. I can get on board with this. So she was talking about marigolds, as her type of flower. And once again, the genius question popped up into my noggin, and I asked, well, what color are marigolds? And yeah, another awkward pause. The answer, gold. So yeah, both times the answer was in the question. And I'm not going to be a contestant on Jeopardy anytime soon. I'm just not gonna do that to myself. And apparently, I've been eating a lot of retard sandwiches. Yeah, I subsist solely on retard sandwiches. So maybe I should include a glass of shut the hell up to my gamer diet. I don't know. Anyway, enough about my mental deficiencies. I wanted to talk about a few topics today that are very pertinent to the future of gaming, and very present, still very much so in Everquest, even now in Project 1999 form, and that is RMTing. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, RMT just stands for Real Money Trade or Real Money Transfer, and there's no real general consensus on that actual acronym, but essentially it is what it sounds like. You take real money from real life, and via PayPal or some other method, I'm not sure what they used in the past, I would assume maybe Western Union, I don't know. But you take that money, and with it you buy equipment and in-game currency to further your character. You could even just flat out purchase a ready-made character for yourself. And yeah, that's basically been a part of gaming since the get-go. Definitely a part that's been frowned upon by devs and GMs alike. And yeah, and I myself am not a fan of it, but it is there, it does exist, and especially now with Diablo 3 on the horizon, I'm sure you're all aware, RMT is going to be implemented into that game. There's going to be an auction house that's going to be a regularly accessible feature. And yeah, they're not even going to be ambiguous about it. They're not going to have any bones with it. I don't know how I feel about that. There are some blatant cons to this move, as well as some pros. I think the pros are very nearsighted, though, and I'm trying to be as objective as possible, but I do have an opinion on the matter. And I don't understand the whole rationale behind this kind of move. But for me, it's a blemish on the game itself. Being a fan of the original Diablo way back when, having played it like crazy, I'm just not too crazy. I'm not too sure about the new Diablo 3 and if I'm going to be playing it. Because there are some features of it that I really do like, at least on the face of it, as I've noticed so far from the few videos that are out there about it. The prevalent PvP environment seems interesting. I am a fan of some of the classes, especially the monk class that's going to be included. But with RMT, I don't know. I can't rationalize it, even in my mentally deficient brain that I have. It's not as though it's a victimless crime or what have you. It's not like it's legalizing prostitution, so you can have safeguards in place and a more social atmosphere for all. Well, that's kind of a strange correlation, but I'm going to stand by it nonetheless. With RMTing, it basically whittles gameplay down to its core. You have two options before you. The first is you can earn all the items and platinum, or whatever the currency is, by the sweat of your own brow, or the sweat of your palms, I should say. And that is, you can go about gaming the way it was originally intended, and earn the items by your own strengths, and lose items and lose experience by your weaknesses, and therefore learn how to play the game. Or the second option, you can take your holiday bonus or grandmama's medication money, God forbid, and go ahead and buy your character anything and everything your heart desires. Now the problem with that, in my mind, is the first person gets screwed over completely. It can be argued that, oh well, the first person has all the time on their hands, all the time in the world to go ahead and camp and obtain said items. Some people just don't have that kind of time, and they like to enjoy the game just as much as the first person. Well, okay, that's great, but put them on a separate server maybe, or because it can interfere with the actual game itself, the infrastructure, water down the items that are bought with real money, because I don't know, it really does deflate the worth of an item for role players and casual players alike. I tried to justify a dev-supported RMT system, but I haven't been able to do so yet in my mind. I can't quite grasp what their reasoning is, and I don't get it. I'm not having a mental crisis here or anything like that. I'm not sitting in the corner of my room at nighttime staring at the speckled ceiling. I'm not doing that. But it's something to kind of chew over and think about. Real money almost completely devalues the first-person efforts in my mind. That's what I see when I first think about that. Why take the long road when there's a shortcut and all you have to do is pay a toll? There's no real point in going through the motions if somebody else could just negate them entirely and still get the reward. You can, for instance, throw money at stuff in real life and it makes things a whole lot easier, but it also makes it a whole lot less memorable. So that's the real issue I take with Diablo 3. It just seems like a weird approach to me. Now, I'm not going to be preaching Centaurian from the Mount here. It's not going to be a Jeff Goldblum moment from Jurassic Park where I rant about lunchboxes and shoulders of geniuses and kids wielding their dad's guns, but, it's still kind of a problem. It irks me. I'm irked, Blizzard. And, yeah, I don't know if I will be playing Diablo 3. We'll see, but I can't quite get behind something like that. I'm not boycotting it or whatnot. It's not that much of an issue I have, but I can't see myself playing something like that and really feeling like I'm, in it to win it. It's just something that kind of bothers me. Now it does occur in other games as well, even here on Project 1999, as I said. But it's not bolstered by the devs, by the GMs. Um, there's a fair amount of it that goes on this server, not a whole lot, but it does occur. But there's a plenty of players such as myself that just pay it no mind. That's not to say that ignorance is bliss, but for me, I like focusing on aspects of the game that I like, that initially drew me in when I was 13 years old and really into it, and still am very much into it, but I was very impressionable, and I liked those aspects of it. The interactions with other players, grouping together in dangerous areas for items that just rarely dropped, and then having to divvy out the loot accordingly, or slash randoming for it, which just made things more interesting. And then coming back from all that fighting with your spoils from war, and just hanging out in EC Tunnel or Gaffey. And it just made a whole memorable experience, which is why a lot of people came back to this game and are playing it now, I think. And I think a whole lot would more so if they just knew about it. So, I don't know, that's why I like MMOs, that's why I like RPGs, because they have that that ability to draw you in, especially MMOs, because the other elements, the human element, and being able to just buy in-game items just completely takes away the whole experience. You lose that storyline, all of those relationships, the ups, the downs, they're non-existent. You're left with point A and point B with no line in between. And for me, it's all about that line in between. I don't care about the 2 points. I don't want to tell people, well, I started out with nothing and I got a ton of stuff. And that's just not an interesting story. It doesn't do it for me. Like, everyone's got a date of birth and a date of death on their headstone, or they will. And everyone kind of overlooks the dash in between. That's pretty much where your life was. It's that little dash. And I don't know. I think the old adage rings true that you give something up for everything you gain. So, yeah, I don't understand. Maybe one day I will. But Blizzard's approach to RMTing being what it is, it's not the worst thing that could happen, because they could have gone the other route. They could have gone the Orwellian, more controlling Big Brother route, if you will, and that would not have worked, I think. I think that would have just completely failed. It would have been the worser of the two options, the the greater of the two evils, but it wouldn't have worked, because I think history has shown time and time again, like with Prohibition, that people will do what they want to do, what they're most compelled to, that is. And they're going to go after what they want, regardless of deterrence and the penalties. And laws don't really work, in my opinion. Outside forces aimed at controlling people ultimately fail, because in the end we want what we want, and that outweighs what we don't want. It's just human nature, I think. And with that said, RMTing is probably going to be here to stay for a very long time, which is probably why Blizzard went ahead and said, okay, we're going to get behind this and just going to go ahead and make it very accessible to the everyday player. But bolstering it is probably not the best move either. So I think the only thing that really is left is to just leave it alone. Let bygones be bygones, and don't fix it if it isn't broken, you know? I think that if you still discourage RMTing and have GMs look around for it, that's absolutely fine. But you don't want to get all policey on everyone. It's going to happen, and you're just going to have to live with it. But it's not game breaking. I don't think it destroys everything, because I'm not going to shell out real money for it, for pixels. I'm just not going to do it. I don't have the real life funds. I am a student loan plebe, and I refuse to throw my extra Benjamins, or Washingtons and Lincolns, more like it, into in-game auction house. I don't think I'm going to do that. And there are lots of other people with the same idea in mind, of the same school of thought, and they even have plenty of money. They could do it if they wanted to, but they're just not into it. They're not gonna do it. They don't see the sense in it, I guess. And I think that's a better approach to the whole situation at hand. But yeah, back to the whole prohibition thing, that whole trying to control people idea. I remember I was watching this documentary a while ago about a speakeasy actually quite a few of them, but there was this one in particular that was right on the shore in on the east coast of the United States. I think it was like the northeast coast somewhere. And by day it was like a pet shop or a clothing store or something. That was the ruse. And by night it was a very happening place where people just boozed up. And they had this elaborate wooden slat mechanism, which with a lever, when you pulled the lever, it would shift everything being the bottles of booze, down into the basement cellar. So whenever gumshoes would show up unannounced, they would just pull the lever, and voila, you would go back to being a pet shop or a clothing store in the middle of the night. And the detectives would be none the wiser. So, yeah, just absolutely fascinating to me. Because the bottles would go into the basement cellar, which was only accessible from the bottom level, which was only visible at nighttime because the tide would be in during the day, completely obscuring the bottom level. So you wouldn't even know there was 2 levels to this building without being really close at nighttime because of the cover of darkness. And added to that, the ships would come in at nighttime and ferry in all of the rum and all the whiskey. So it just, I don't know, it was really creative, and it speaks to the creativeness of just about anyone out there who wants what they want, regardless of whether or not it's exactly good for you. I think the alternative is obviously more destructive, trying to control other people. It's kind of like the Great Escape. You know, you always have to keep that fire in you in order to get in or to get out of something. Maybe not the best analogy since their plans were foiled, but still. I can't understand anyone who thinks they can control other people. I think the real idea is to try to control yourself, to look at yourself, to question yourself, and to say, what's going on here? Because we are curious. We're all curious. Every one of us is a little odd, whether we like to admit it or not. And, you know, some people could accuse me of that. I mean, I keep choosing to play human characters in fantasy worlds, and although in my defense I do now have a gnome, which I play from time to time, but that itself is odd. I mean, how many people can say that they have a gnome that they play? It didn't happen in the 1700s unless you were absolutely batshit crazy. Just didn't happen. If it did, they didn't write it down in history, so and for good reason. But anyway, enough all the ranting and the tangents. That's about it for now for this Oggok episode. We're going to get on to some other places, Dreadlands being one of them. And until next time, drink up, whatever your drink may be, and enjoy.